Welcome back. Let's break down some of the big headlines of the week and what could be the most ambitious crossover event in political news. Please welcome my guest tonight from Axios congressional reporter Stephen Neukam, and from NOTUS, the new Washington publication from the Albertan Journalism Institute, politics reporter Reese Gorman. Both for the first time in studio here on the Final Five together. Guys, good to see you both.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Let's just start it off. I mean, it's a new month, and I don't think we could imagine in 3 days just the headlines that we have seen. It's been an absolute insane couple of days with the speculation, the fallout from the debate, and it shows no sign of letting up.
Yeah, I think what is really mind-blowing is if you go back to before last Thursday, the Democratic posture was, of course, President Biden is our nominee. How dare you mention his age? How dare you talk about all of these things that were a concern, at least in the media, people who were observing Biden. Mm-hmm. And now, a week later, we're in a situation where there's so many Democrats who are openly calling, not just congresspeople, but donors, pundits, columnists calling for the president to step aside. It's been so fast. It's light speed.
And to his point as well, I mean, and not just saying that, how dare you kind of question this. Yeah. People were ridiculed for even saying that this could be a possibility. That's saying, I mean, the Wall Street Journal reporters that wrote that story about Biden's age, your colleague Alex Thompson, have been really kind of roasted and ridiculed for writing about Biden's age and paying a lot of attention to it. And even if someone were to mention that the possibility that Biden's not the nominee, it was considered a Republican conspiracy, and now it's like a mainstream thing that, oh my God, this could actually happen.
There was a lot said about people in the Washington press corps or within the Democratic Party that was quote unquote bedwetting, the ones who were worried so much about the president's performance. He did put out a statement today saying that he's staying in the race, he's not going anywhere. But I mean, how many times have you heard denials for things that eventually happen?
Look, they're going to say publicly that he's in the race until he isn't, if he isn't. I mean, that's what they're going to say publicly. I can tell you from conversations that we've had with Democrats, senior Democrats, donors, it's a real conversation, a serious conversation that is going on at the top levels of the party, talking about, do we stick with the president at the top of the ticket in 2024?
And also, just from stuff I'm hearing, is that there's a lot of worry for down-ballot people as well, not just at the highest rankings of Democrat Party. It's down-ballot. They're worried about having Biden at the top of the ticket in these swing states. I mean, they're scared that this could be a drag on them, especially for people that are in, whether it be seats that Trump won, or they're trying to kind of combat kind of a Trump Republican in their district. They're worried about what they have to deal with right now.
It's funny you mentioned, because both of you have written about this in recent days. I want to show a couple of the pieces. Stephen, you wrote for Axios, donors eye Senate House to hedge against Biden loss. That was a headline that you had from yesterday. Reese, this came out from you today that said Republicans see the Democratic crisis as a GOP opportunity down ballot. Stephen, as you look at from your perspective here, I mean, why are they looking? I mean, why are they looking to throw money if there's so much concern about the down ballot races? Why is it so valuable all of a sudden to take those resources towards these congressional races?
I think donors are waking up to the possibility, the conversations that we had with folks, they're waking up to the possibility of a Republican trifecta in January 2025. Trump White House, Republican Senate, Republican House. In Democratic donors' eyes, that's worst case scenario, and they want to do everything they can to avoid that. So if the top, from their perspective, if the top of the ticket is a wash, if they don't believe in the president's ability to be reelected, let's shift money down ballot. And that's sort of the hedging that we're starting to see and starting to hear from Democratic donors that they're going to be taking.
Because the conventional wisdom going into this year, going into this election cycle, was that when you look at the congressional races, it's very likely Republicans could flip the Senate, but Democrats could take the House. But I think conventional wisdom, Reese, is like, I mean, I don't think it's worked in this city since at least 2016.
Oh, 100%. And especially, I mean, if you look at just the chaotic year that Republicans have had in the House, I mean, ousting a speaker, taking, I think it was 5 days to elect the first speaker. I mean, it looked like a shoo-in that Democrats are going to take the House. And now they're extremely worried, so much to the point to where Republicans are actually, salivating at the idea of having Biden at the top of the ticket because of how much they think that this will help them.
So there is the potential in some of these quarters where you may have places like Heritage and other factions on the right looking to do what they can to keep Biden off the ballot. Even if there is a change atop the ballot, they're looking at legal remedies here.
Exactly. And so they basically, I mean, I talked to multiple people over at Heritage, as well as some GOP strategists and some sources close to Trump, that basically are like, we want Biden on the top of the ticket. We think he's the best candidate that we could take. So Heritage's plan is basically that if it were to happen, say Biden withdraws, or say Biden's replaced a convention through some means, they would take legal remedies, litigation, to ensure that whoever's replaced him will have a very tough time getting on the ballot. Not necessarily, they might not succeed, but just the drama around that alone could be enough to kind of throw some more chaos in the Democratic Party right now that's already in disarray. And so their idea is maybe we're successful in keeping them off the ballot, but if not, at least we cause this kind of chaos that's happening right here.
And one of the things that, Stephen, to your end on the Hill, I mean, Lloyd Doggett came out and said what he said. You have a lot of people like Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez of Washington, Jared Golden of Maine, who are saying, they're not saying Biden should get out of the race. They're saying Biden's going to lose this race. And that seems to be a different tack than urging the president to get out of the way.
It's a very interesting sort of political way to spin
Yeah.
what they're saying. Look, there are some that have gone on record and said that they want the president to step aside. The reality is yes, when there's pressure building down the rank and file within the sort of backbenchers of the Democratic caucus in both the Senate and the House, but it really matters what leaders think. What does Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer tell President Biden? They spoke today. What does House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries tell him? They spoke yesterday. Those are the voices that are really going to matter. They're going to be pressured from their caucus further down. They're going to feel the pressure. But the decision that they make and what they tell the president matters exponentially more than what the rank and file say.
I thought it was supposed to be easy going into a holiday, guys.
Not at all. It's actually significantly more busy now.
I guess we're going to see what happens from here on out. We get a couple of days, and then we'll see as we go into the RNC. Stephen Neukam, Reese Gorman, guys, good to see you both. Thanks for coming in. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having us on.
And the Final Five is back right after this.